So for the external and internal morphology of the insects, this is the Musca domestica species to show the different parts of the insects. Insects have three main body parts: the head, thorax, and abdomen. Here's a brief description of each. The head of an insect contains sensory organs such as antenna for detecting the environment, compound eyes for vision, and mouth parts for feeding. It's where many of the insect's essential sensory and feeding functions are located. The thorax is the middle part of an insect's body. It's responsible for locomotion, and it typically bears the legs, and in flying insects, the wings. The thorax is an engine that drives an insect's movement, including walking, crawling, and flying. The abdomen is the posterior part of the insect's body. It houses many of the insect's internal organs, including the digestive system and reproductive organs. In some cases, it also contains specialized structures such as stingers or ovipositors, depending on the insect's species. As you can see in the picture, it indicates the three main body parts, including their specific parts. So, insects have a variety of antenna types that have evolved to serve different sensory functions. Here are some common types of insects' antenna. First is the aristate, lamellate, serrate, flavellate, moniliform, geniculate, plumose, pectinate, cetaceous, stylate, and clavate. And for the wing types, insects have evolved many variations of the wings, and wing venation is a commonly used taxonomic character, especially at the family and species level. Membranous wings are thin and more or less transparent. This type of wings is found among the Odonata and Neuroptera. Halteres are an extreme modification among the order of Diptera, in which the hindwings are reduced to mere knobs used for balance and direction during flight. Elytra are the hardened, heavily scleroterized forewings of beetles and are modified to protect the hindwings when at rest. A variation of the elytra is the hemelytra. The forewings of hemipterans are said to be hemiletrous because they are hardened throughout the proximal two-thirds, while the distal portion is membranous. Unlike the elytra, hemelytra function primarily as flight wings. In both cases, the membranous and hind wings are used in flight and are folded beneath the forewings when at rest. In most living insects, there are three axillary sclerites that articulate with various parts of the wings. In the Neoptera, a muscle on the third axillary causes it to pivot about the posterior notal wings process and thereby to fold the wings over the back of the insects. Two orders of winged insects, the Ephemeroptera and Odonata, have not evolved this wing flexing mechanism, and their axillary sclerites are arranged in a pattern different from that of the Neoptera, and these two orders form the Paleoptera. Mouthparts types, just as insects take many different forms, they are also possess a variety of different mouth types, and each of which can be grouped under one of two main categories: for the chewing, the mandibulate, and for sucking, hustulate. The five primarily parts of the insect's mouth are the clypeus, the upper lip or the labrum, the two jaw-like structures or the mandibles, and the maxillae, and the lower lip or the labium. The maxillae and the labium are divided into various substructures, which include the galli, the paraglossa, glossa, and the maxillary and the labial lap. The mouth orientation, it is used to describe the orientation of an insect's mouth parts relative to its head capsule. And these terms are particularly used for classifying and understanding the diversity of the mouthpart arrangement in insects. The prognathous insects have mouth parts that are directed forward and away from the body, extending horizontally. Many herbivorous insects like grasshopper and beetles have prognathous. Mouth parts, um, hypognathous insects have mouth parts that are directed downwards, away from the horizontal plane of the body. Mosquitoes with their piercing sucking mouth parts are the example of hypognathous insects. And for the leg types, cursorial, which is used for walking and running, and some textbooks distinguish the two by calling walking legs ambulatory or gressorial, but the leg structure is basically the same. The raptorial, which is the four legs modified for grasping, and for the fossorial, the four legs are tibiae specialized for digging, and for the saltatorial, which is the hindlings adapted for jumping, and for the natatorial, the fore or the hindle adapted for swimming.
Arachnids, a class of arthropods, typically have the following basic body parts and functions. To begin with, the cephalothorax. This is the front of the body which combines the head and thorax. It contains the eye, mouth parts, and the first pair of walking legs. Next is the abdomen. The abdomen is the rear portion of the body. It houses the internal organs including the reproductive and digestive systems. In some arachnids like spiders, it also contains the silk glands. In addition, the pedipalps, these are the second pair of appendages that is located near the mouth. They have various functions such as sensing, manipulating prey, and in some cases, transferring sperms. Besides, the silk glands found in the abdomen produces the silk that spiders use to build webs, wrap prey, and create egg sacs. Along with the sharp fangs on arachnids, particularly on the chelicerae, served a crucial function. This is to capture the prey. The primary function of this is to also immobilize them, and these body parts and function can vary among different arachnid groups such as spiders, scorpions, ticks, and mites. Each group has adaptation that suit their specific ecological role, niche, and lifestyles. Arachnid, particularly the group of arachnids known as spiders, are the most successful terrestrial organisms.
Now let us proceed to the arthropods and collecting tools. These are the class arthropods, which includes the insects, spiders, mites, and other relatives, is without question the most group organism on the planet. Insects also count for nearly 55% of all aspects known to the science. This is according to Birchwall in 1992. Next, let us discuss about the passive and active sampling for collecting samples in arthropods. First, as you can see, this is what you call the swift net. Next is, as you can see, the material on this left side is the swift net or the collecting nets. What is collecting nets? It's used to swift through the vegetation to collect random insects not easily seen, which is a combination of aerial and swift net. Swift net are also commonly used, with the majority of the net bag being made of heavy clothes, or approximately an apical third bag made of fine mesh materials. Next thing is, as you can see, in the middle is the kill jar or a killing bottle. The effective collecting of an insects of related groups usually inquires of a specimen be killed so that they can be properly mounted in the studies. It is composed with some of paper or cotton. After it is a cardboard or a box, and having some of the collecting from the net. Next is third one is the chloroform that we've used in our study, in our laboratory experiment, which is the killing agent or the killing to put in the killing jar, which is include liquid killing agent are prepared for a two ways. One is to pour 2.5 centimeter of a plaster in a prepared mixed within a water, which is into a bottom of the jar, so that it allows to dry up the insects inside, or the insects would be sleep, so on and so forth. Next thing is the common tools for a passive tools, which is composed with alcohol, Ziploc, peanut butter, and tuna, and then the paper. For the paper, which is the band paper used for a paper stage, for mixing the tuna and the peanut butter to bite all the insects to be used for. And then Ziploc is also used for putting those insects that be collected after collecting the for biting those insects. And then alcohol is for the one that used also for biting once they are stopped or have been done eating the food in that paper stage. And that's all for the passive and active tools. Thank you.
Now let's talk about how to actually collect these insects. So, there are two major schools of thought. One is active sampling, and two is passive sampling. Now, active sampling uses you, the collector, to physically seek and capture the specimens. So, we would employ techniques such as sweep netting, using a handheld net, foliage beating for catching fallen specimens into a net or cloth sheet, actively searching the ground under rocks, sifting leaf litter, and using an aspirator to manipulate sediment and catch insects. However, be careful in using an aspirator because you run the risk of a lung infection by inhaling fungal or bacterial spores which may be attached to the sediments or even the insect specimens too. And now passive sampling now uses indirect contact and minimizes specimen damage, wherein traps are set to either attract or intercept insects, including pitfall traps or baited pitfall traps where insects cannot climb on, malice or flight intercept traps for our flyers, light traps and collecting at the light sheet for those attracted to the light sources, sticky traps for ground foragers, and also pheromone traps and yellow pants, which lure through the sense of smell and sight, respectively.
Now let's proceed to the arthropod morphological characters for identification. So arthropods have a tough exoskeleton made of chitin, covering their entire bodies, including the head, and these features provide structural support and protection. So the body of many arthropods, including insects and some other related groups, is divided into three distinct regions: the head, thorax, and the abdomen. So now let us start with the foremost and most anterior segment of the arthropod body, which is the head. So the main function of this segment is that it houses important sensory and feeding structures. Now let us proceed with the middle segment of the arthropod body found between the head and the abdomen, which is the thorax. So this part primarily associated with locomotion. And lastly, the posterior or the rear segment of the arthropod body the abdomen. So the main function of this segment is mainly for digestion, reproduction, and in some cases, respiration. So another factor in characterizing and identifying the arthropod's morphological feature is simply observing its appendages. So commonly, arthropods have jointed appendages like legs and antennae, and the number and shape of these limbs can be crucial for telling them apart. So another distinct feature is the antenna. The head often features sensory appendages like antennae in insects or pedipalps in arachnids. And these structures are crucial for detecting chemicals, vibrations, and touch, aiding in navigation and prey detection. Next, we have here is the wings. It plays a crucial role in identifying and characterizing arthropods by providing information about their mode of locomotion, habitat, and behavior. So, arthropods with wings are typically insects, and the presence, absence, or structure of wings can be key diagnostic factors. Now we have the mouth parts. Usually, arthropods have diverse mouth parts adapted to their feeding habits. Insects, for example, can have chewing, sponging, or piercing sucking mouth parts, while arachnids like spiders possesses fangs for injecting venom into their prey. So another distinct feature is the respiratory structures. The head may also host respiratory structures depending on the arthropod's class. For example, insects have tiny openings called spiracles that led to a tracheal system, while arachnids, like spiders, respire through book lungs or tracheae. So lastly, we have here the additional features like the sensory organs, like for example, eyes. However, it varies between arthropods. Like for example, compound eyes are common in insects, while some arachnids have only simple eyes. So to summarize everything, arthropod identification involves examining their exoskeleton, body segmentation, appendages, antennae, wings, mouth parts, respiration, and sensory organs.
Moving on to this slide, aside from the arthropods' morphological characters, one to be considered as identification to arthropods is the hierarchical classification of every species to determine the certain organisms. This starts with domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Another way to determine certain organisms is to look for other sources like expert to seek further knowledge on species to be studied. At this slide, here are the three specimens that we collected during our lab work. Students used the hierarchical classification to determine every species organization. And other than that, students used other sources given by the professor at this course. As you can see, the three specimen classification, domain, kingdom, phylum are all as well as the class is all the same. Eukarya, Animalia, Arthropoda, and Insecta. Um, Other than the classification in order, maybe those order is Coleoptera, and the dragonfly order is the Ordonata, and the ant order is the Hymenoptera. Moreover, the family of May beetle is the Scarabaeidae, and the family of the dragonfly Lobulidae, and the family of the ant is the Formicidae. Lastly, the genus is the Phylophaga in May beetles, and genus of the dragonfly is the Diploquod, and the genus of the ant is the Lepisiota.